Your attention, please. Paul and Alex are required to proceed to the gate immediately.
What?
No way.
What is happening here?
This is the last call for the Layovers podcast.
Really?
Come on, man. This is our thing. We got this.
Oh, yeah.
And we made it.
Of course, geeks.
Flight 53 to Budapest. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Paul. Now, Budapest is a small piece of a very complicated puzzle that you had to put together recently, and I cannot wait for you to share this story because Budapest, while it might seem random, links this unbelievable story together that I'm hoping you'll share with us throughout the show.
Yeah, I will. I said last time that I was going to Hong Kong via Finnair. Well, a lot of it didn't actually happen the way it should have happened.
And I'm lucky because I got the play-by-play, so as it was happening, I was coming along for the ride. But yet, when you pull back and you see this story in totality, it's really quite extraordinary.
That would teach me a lesson of always trying like strange routing. So for once I was punished. It always worked. I did last year's things where I would go to Warsaw and then connect to Doha, and every time it worked, right? Even if I padded timing a little bit, this time it didn't. And thanks to the weather, I'll talk about it a bit later. I will also talk about HackHorizon. I mentioned it last time. It was just over. We're recording today, May 9th, not even a week after our previous recording, which is quite extraordinary for us.
It doesn't happen very often at all, but there's so much to talk about that I figured if we waited, it would just pile up and pile up.
Yeah, plus you're flying to Hong Kong.
I am on Sunday.
And I'm flying to Athens tomorrow, and again Athens a week after, and we realized that if we don't record today, we might actually not record again for like 3-4 weeks. So let's start with the news we talked about last time, because we had some comments about our old rant about United. But to put it in context, before I go to United, there were two other stories, and they're relevant, that came out this past week. There was this fight on the ground in Tokyo.
Yes.
Wow, that was
filmed.
it
On the ground or in the air?
I think it was still on the ground because the guy was then expelled. So this guy, the video, that's what the video shows. Yeah. And, let's always take it with a grain of salt because the video only shows you one point of view. And that's part of the debate we'll have today, by the way. So you have this guy that suddenly starts, just hitting the face another guy for no apparent reason. And then, of course, the other guy kind of starts reacting. Apparently, then the initiator of that whole fight quiets down for a little bit, then starts again. He had to be pulled out of the flight. Apparently, he was drunk. But still, it's not pretty.
It's not pretty. And it was a full-on brawl. I mean, these guys were out for blood. It was pretty distressing just to watch the video. I cannot imagine what it must have been like to have been in the rows surrounding them while this commotion was happening. It must have been terrifying.
The first thing we both said, actually, when we saw that was like, oh, we should just ban drunk people coming in flights. I know it's a bit maybe too much, but I think it's true. And I think more and more airlines are taking a zero tolerance policy on this, as they should. And, you and I talked about this briefly, but your point about banning them for life and then sharing that information across airlines is a really good idea. And I don't think airlines do that enough. They have their own list that they say, we've kicked you off and we're not putting you back. But I think that information should be disseminated. I think right now, more often than not, the pilot has the last say. Of course, on the ground, it's still, airport operations, I would say as well. I mean, look, the thinking I had was a bit like the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, which has a lot of flaws. But one of the things is when you're caught for doping, well, you get a suspension for 2 years or 4 years or a life ban, and maybe something like that with a few strikes would actually work. Yeah. I'm not a teetotaler. I'm not someone who says you shouldn't drink or whatever. But I mean, when somebody enters a flight and is already in a very high state of ebriety, maybe we should simply have it. It would be simpler to read the rules and say, look, sorry, sir or ma'am, but you cannot get into that flight. You shouldn't have drunk that much. I don't know. Because otherwise, how do you cope with that?
No, I mean, and if you're somewhere over the Pacific, a couple of hours away from a possible diversion, then what? That's even more dangerous, and you get into the point where you need to call Richard Marx to come in and taser somebody,
Exactly, I was about to say that. But you actually, I saw you reacting on Twitter about also someone who was getting way too many drinks in a flight. I think Virgin, was it?
Yeah, it was a good friend of mine, Chris. He was on a flight back from Las Vegas and was told me about a guy sitting next to him that had drank 8 bottles of the little mini wine that they give you. 8 bottles of them. And I think his issue was, if the guy wants to drink himself into a coma, fine, but he was disruptive to him being a seatmate. But also, there's a point where the airline should take responsibility, perhaps, and say, we're cutting you off. But that's a difficult thing to say to somebody who might become violent.
Yeah, absolutely. So tasering is one of the options. I'm actually fine with, like we said in the episode, we talked about Richard Marx. The other, it's a bit different. It's not about drunk. The other story that hit the headlines in the US this time was, I think was it a Delta flight? So there was parents and their kids were sitting on the ground. So the story goes, because it's a bit complicated here. The story goes, they had bought, I think, 4 tickets, 2 for them, the parents, and 2 for their kids. And they had on top 1 2-year-old. So 2-year-olds don't have to pay for their seats, and usually they sit with their parents. One of the teenagers had taken an earlier flight, so he was not on that flight, and the parents decided that the 2-year-old should get the seat because they had bought it. The airline then told them, the attendant told them, we've given the seat to another passenger who was probably on a waiting list or something. And then obviously the parents went into a commotion, say, no, come on, we paid for that seat, so our kid should be sitting there. The flight attendant responded. The video goes on for like 8-10 minutes, I think. And I'm saying it's complicated because in that case, look, the actual, name of the passenger of the ticket had taken an earlier flight.
Yeah, so they got the product they paid for.
Yeah. And the kid, although he's 2-year-old, was not ticketed. He was, but he didn't have a seat. And I could see like people on Twitter and Facebook, etc., like fighting over each other. Of course, armchair analysis, but who's in the right there? The rules. Delta is in the right. Of course, the name of the passenger, that passenger who had a ticket, is not on the flight. Thus, the seat is free. Now, a lot of people say, well, but then the parents had paid for it. And then other people say, but there's some common sense.
It is a gray area. And I'm still not sure that I have all the facts or I've discovered all the facts yet. But I agree. I think Delta were in the right here, technically. And the passenger got what the service they paid for. They just got it on a different service that they opted to take. But then the whole thing deteriorates, and it's less about the actual issue and more about how that issue was handled by the thing on the ground, which leads to a broader issue that I think we're gonna kind of pick apart in this episode, because it deteriorates instantly from discussion of an issue to threats of imprisonment and their children being taken away from them.
Yeah, because one of the flight attendants said, well, if you don't comply, you'll lose your kid and you will be put in foster care. What kind of threat is that?
Extraordinary.
No matter the rules, no matter if Delta is right technically, you don't say that, for crying out loud.
No. And I think whatever moral high ground Delta had initially, they immediately lost.
Exactly. It comes down to the stories we told about last week about Mr. Dow. We'll come to there to a minute. But before we go to how to handle disruptive passengers, I want to say something. It's true also that on one hand, I'm very happy is maybe an overstatement that, passengers have the possibility of basically broadcasting what happens. Say, okay, look, we're like these dash cam cameras you see on cars. I was actually in the right when that other car hit me. The problem with that is that sometimes these videos obviously lack context. There's this movie, maybe you've seen it, of the 50s of Kurosawa, called Rashomon, where there's a story being told by 3 different witnesses. And of course, the story is very different depending on your angle and your point of view. A bit of this happens with these videos because, of course, when you start with, let's say, even the brawl at that flight in Narita, it seems pretty clear, but of course, it starts to being videoed at a time the brawl has already started. I'm not justifying anyone hitting anyone. That should never happen. But what happened in the seconds that led to that incident, we don't know. So I'm just saying that all this should be taken by a grain of salt. So I'm not here defending any airline or any passenger. I'm just saying that sometimes there's an overreaction about, that video clearly shows that. And that comes to the point to people complained about our stance last time. We talked a lot about the systemic stance of United. They said, okay, the airline has many issues, it's entitled, etc., etc. And some people, especially Nick, one of our loyal listeners, told us that, well, you're taking the side of the very disruptive passenger. He should have complied to the orders. He went out of the plane, so he was escorted a first time, then came back. There's actually a video of him coming back looking a bit bit lost actually in trying to sit back in his seat. And the $2 million, whatever the number he got out of the settlement of United, is basically rewarding bad behavior.
I disagree that it's rewarding bad behavior. And I was fascinated by this. So I've spent a while just to make sure I fully understood the legality of what happened before we get into the moral thing and then this broader cultural thing and the PR angle as well, which still confounds me. Ben Schlappig from 1 Mile at a Time, he did a really interesting analysis that kind of takes at a very high level some of the points that are being made around this and picks them apart. And he even says in this post, he's not a lawyer, so take this with a grain of salt. But this whole thing was about denied boarding and the DOT's specific guidelines on denial of boarding and how airlines can deny boardings and the rights that they have and the rights that the passengers have. However, what's become clear is this guy was not denied boarding. And that's where all of these airline protections are built in, so that if you are denied boarding, the airline is protected, the consumer is protected. He had a confirmed seat. He was allowed to board and to take that seat. And then after that, they come and ask him to get off the plane. After that, it's no longer denied boarding. It moves into a separate legal sphere called refused transport. And those are two very, very different things. They're both very clearly laid out in United's contract of carriage, a section on denied boarding and a section on refusal to transport. And the contract of carriage has all these reasons why they can deny boarding and also refuse to transport someone. But a flight being oversold is not one of them.
Oh, wow.
And so that means that this was a refusal to transport and not a case of denied boarding. So then this means that United had absolutely no legal grounds to refuse him transport based on what is inside of their contract of carriage. Because people keep pointing at the contract of carriage and saying, oh, but it says in the contract of carriage that denied boarding. It wasn't a denied boarding. And I thought, okay, that's interesting armchair analysis by someone who's very close to the industry. But what does the law say? Well, there is a aviation attorney, Arthur Wolk, who read all 45 pages of United's contract of carriage and said that United violated their own contract. And he said, quote, I want to assure United Airlines they had absolutely no right to remove that man from the airplane. Absolutely no right to forcibly remove him from an airplane. They're in trouble. And then the National Law Review, which is a very highly respected law journal in the U.S., goes even further into the legal precedent and the denied boarding rules and what the DOT says, and basically backs that up as well, saying that United breached their own contract of carriage. Dr. Dow was not denied boarding. United should have, as most carriers do, taken care of the oversold situation before boarding passengers. Once boarded, United Airlines' own contract controls with respect to why a passenger can be removed from a plane and being oversold is not a stated reason.
Wow. That's very interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Because that story led to a lot of things, because whilst we were recording, there were some hearings in Congress, was it Senate? I don't remember, in the U.S. And right now there's no new law, but it created an entire, I will say one thing, I always admire the U.S. for that, because they have always get to a point of a lot of problems, and then you have these public hearings about, okay, what can we do? I'm not saying that it solves everything, but there's a very resilient way of dealing with things. Of course, ex ante, but still. And so there were congressional hearings about what should we do about consumer rights in this industry. There's been talk about forbidding overbooking entirely. Yeah. I don't think that will ever happen, because honestly, it's fair that airlines overbook slightly planes because they know with the data they have that on each flight there will be an X amount of people that do not show, and they want to actually fill the plane, so that's fine.
Yes.
But still, there's a threat, right? There's a threat saying, oh, you shouldn't do it. There were other talks like that about also changing the conditions of changing your tickets in the US.
Yep.
So limiting the money the airline could make you pay for such a change, etc. And of course, that scared a bit the airlines, and the Airlines for America, A4A, which represents the big ones in the US, came out and issued a press release saying that they are committed to not removing a boarded passenger from an aircraft in a bumping situation like that anymore. I mean, again, they just said that. It doesn't mean that they have changed their policies yet, but I think they are preemptively acting because they know that if they don't act now because of the public outcry, again, like we said last week, like everybody everybody in the world has heard about this United story. Yeah. If they don't act themselves and self-police, they will have the hammer of their legislator, and they don't want that.
No, they don't. They don't. And I think, this is going to be case law for years and years and years and years and years as this problem probably will persist. And I think, that what the legal community is pointing to is saying that if United had asked passengers to not board the aircraft while they figured out this overbooking problem, the airline would have been much better protected. But the contract of carriage doesn't give the right to airlines to remove passengers once they've been boarded, forcibly or otherwise. Now, if a passenger's committed a criminal act or interfered with flight crew, then that they can remove them. And this is another argument that was coming up a lot on social media is he disobeyed the orders of a flight member, which is a federal offense. But if the flight crew had told me to take off all my clothes and run up and down the aisle naked, would I do it? F no. Yeah. Absolutely not, because they have no legal authority to demand me to do that. And it was exactly the same in this case. So he was absolutely okay to say, I'm not getting off this plane, even though you've told me to. It's just an interesting thing. And I think it's an extreme case, and I really hope it doesn't happen again. But you're right. It's introduced this kind of necessary period of introspection in the U.S. airline industry to figure out how they solve the problems.
There will always be gray areas, of course. Nick Donnelly, our listener and friend who mentioned that, said, if I have a fight in my pub, I should be able to remove whoever I want because I own the pub. And as the airline or even the pilot, I basically, in brackets, own I'm paraphrasing, it's not exactly what Nick said. I'm owning the aircraft, thus I can make absolutely all decisions I want. Yes and no, because I agree with you. That's the thing.
And I agree with the pub analogy, but as long as it does, if you have a contract between the pub and the punter that says the following things and either one of you violates it, then fine, but that's not comparable. But I really appreciate Nick calling us out on this because we didn't get into the intricacies of the story and we didn't cover both sides. And I think, this has given us an opportunity to. So Nick, thank you. He also, he agreed, and I think he probably even more passionately about it than we've stated in the past episode, that it is a cultural thing as well that needs to be resolved.
We've seen, for instance, that incident we started with in Tokyo. Having lived in Tokyo, I can only imagine how more difficult it might have been for a flight crew that might even not simply be used to have to deal with that level of disruptness. How do you deal? The passenger was deplaned, but I've seen my share of disruptive passengers. I've seen, even drunk passengers. I've seen some of them, the police coming into a flight and picking someone up and moving, but I've never seen violence happen in front of me. I'm not saying that the US owns violence and no other country has. It's not true, but it's true that probably culture has a lot of things to do. We could also see about the reactions when people realized that Ryanair had tasers on board. Some people we're fine. I'm pretty fine with it. I'd rather them having, by the way, tasers than a gun. But you could see that some people were actually taken aback and said, no, tasers are not okay. Everything should be dealt with cords and maybe restraints, but no going to. So it's very cultural as well. And everybody has probably a different stance on it. Also about the respect to authority. We might also be very heavily influenced by our perception of what you should do in front of authority. And if authority should be, you should listen to it. It's a tough one, to be honest, right?
It really is.
In that situation for Mr. Dowd, the one thing I will say, and I'm not again defending him, because if you remember, guys, last time I said, I don't care if he's an ass or not, because I wanted to get that out of the way, but it's true that we needed to talk about it. Thank you, Nick, for pointing that out. The one thing I will say is that a bit akin to situations that we've seen when people criticize people taking their carry-ons after a crash, for instance, the Emirates land crash, it's a high-stressed, you're being singled out in front of everyone. You first refuse, and then you can almost see it in his face. I'm not a therapist, a psychologist, or whatever, so this is purely armchair. But when he comes back into the plane, you can almost see that the guy is completely lost, and he's like in a state that is not almost it doesn't look like he's in a normal state. Very stressed. He's just, I just want to take this flight. Leave me alone. I just want to take this flight. Meaning that I don't know how I even would react if I were singled out like that. Maybe I will just follow orders. Maybe I will start to react, and then I will instinctively say, no, I'm not moving. I'm standing my ground. This is my decision. I have the right to be. I don't know. It means it's complicated. I was watching CNN the other day. That happens to me sometimes. I was in a hotel and they were talking about that. One of the industry people, I don't remember who it was, said a lot of it has to do with common sense. You should just apply common sense. Flight attendants cannot just make up rules on the go, and they don't. No. But sometimes, even if a rule says X, maybe common sense should apply first before you go to the rule. Again, I'm not saying this is the solution. I'm saying that sometimes it looks like people go directly to the rule, and that's the rule, like the Delta thing. Oh, Delta is right. No, it should have some kind of maybe, some flight attendants are trained to handle security issues, but more like threatening, like terrorism, etc. Maybe some should be trained in handling almost like negotiating. How do you talk to someone? How do you engage with someone who's being either disruptive? It's not easy at all. No, clearly not. I don't know. I don't have the solution for that, but I probably will hear more and more, especially because, again, everything is being filmed nowadays. So you see everything every day that something happens in a flight or elsewhere.
It's an extraordinary thing, and that we've had. I don't know if we're just more sensitive to it and therefore we've seen more of these issues, or if there really have been this pocket of activity. But I think I don't know if you've seen this as well, but what really bothers me at an industry level is so much of the analysis and comment is PR experts weigh in on this. And, if I was running PR for United, I would have spun it this way. It's disgusting. This isn't about spin. And how dare you suggest it is? I mean, and they tried it and they fell on their faces. They absolutely made fools of themselves. And we talked about this ad nauseum in the past episode. And you said this, it is not a PR issue. This is not something that you can spin or that you can attempt to tell another story about because of the age of broadcast 24/7. You can't spin this. You have to go back and fix the rot from within.
The cultural, absolutely.
And
that takes time.
It takes years and years, and I don't envy anybody having to do this.
By the way, we didn't mention last time, Munoz got, some people say it's a slap on his hand. He will never be chairman of the company. Maybe that's blocked out of it. So he will end the CEO tenure one day and that's it. Whereas the track was, he was supposed to become chairman afterwards. I don't know if that really changes anything, but
because he went on this contrition tour, didn't he? He went on the TV and radio and cap in hand, and I feel it was genuine because no airline is going to want to go and say, we kicked his ass because he wouldn't listen to us, which they tried to do, and obviously we all threw up our hands in disgust. But then, as you said, he was pulled in front of the U.S. government and questioned about it. So we'll see if that actually has any cultural effect at United, but I don't fly them enough to be able to witness that on a day-to-day basis.
Same. Well, we'll see. But the brand, if we're just talking about that, has taken a hit, as if it needed to, because it's already kind of long. Well, what? Interestingly so, sorry to interrupt, interestingly so, there was, I don't have it in front of me, but I saw a study about millennials. I hate that term, but whatever, maybe because I'm too old, haha. But about whether brands they considered cool. And crazily enough, which is why I didn't trust that study, millennials studied said that United was cooler than Virgin America. What? Maybe they like being punched in the face or something.
That was surprising. And I think what surprised me, but perhaps shouldn't, was that there was a bump in their stock price as well, or it fell less as a result of beating up a passenger than someone who said that they were going to pay their employees a living wage, another airline. There was some awful, just reinforcement of the corporate motives of airlines as opposed to the passenger loving motives that they perhaps should have. So it was just it was a damning indictment of the industry as a whole.
The one thing I will say is that all these people that were the next day, because the United stock took a little hit and then went back to normal, which I was expecting. I'm not Nostradamus, but I mean, come on, this is sadly maybe, but it has nothing to do with shareholder value because the airline makes a lot of money. And also people were like, ban United. These never go anywhere. to be honest. Maybe I'm a cynic, but these never go anywhere. It will either be a cultural change, either being driven from inside or driven from a regulation or breaking up the company. But it's not going to happen because five people will say, I'm switching. You know, I don't fly United. I'm not making a dent in their freaking stock, right?
Yeah.
Let's go to two stories that are nice about airlines. There was this a Southwest flight. I think there was a mother. She was in the plane already. She had already switched her phone off, and her son was, I think, dying. I don't remember the exact story because I don't have it in front of me. And the pilot got radioed and actually went back to the gate, and Southwest did everything possible for that mother to being able to be. So, you know, good stuff happened, right? It's not only airlines are not just machines trying to punch you in the face, but they also actually, you know, most of the time actually what happens, they are actually people and they try to help you, even though in that instance it made everybody else late. The other fun story was, I don't know if you've seen the video, that the Ryanair flight, when the crew comes to this, I think he's a French passenger, and they start talking to him in English, and he doesn't understand, but he has this music instrument with him, and they basically tell him, you know, this is an Irish airline. You have to do something. And the passenger next to him tells him, you need to sing an Irish song. And he starts singing and playing an Irish. It's fantastic. And the whole plane erupts in singing and people clap and whatever. So, you know, even Ryanair gets a lot of slack of not being always very nice airline to fly with. Was really, it's a nice video. I'll put up in the show notes, which, by the way, guys, I'm very late at putting, because right now, because we both travel a lot, I'm prioritizing the actual delivery of the show over the show notes, but I promise you that I'll get back to them very quickly. Well, if you want to fly with glamour in the US, because a lot of people always say that never happens, I don't know if you've seen that LAX is opening a new private terminal. So it's not a private terminal only if you fly private. It's a private terminal that you have to pay a subscription to. On top, you have to pay every time you use it something. And we're talking about, I think the subscription is like $3,000 a year, and then you have to pay $1,000 every time you use it. But it's a totally dedicated terminal with which you can go and board whichever airline you're flying with. Of course, you have to be, very, very rich to do that. That's probably a sign of the industry. Either you're very rich or you have to fly with low leg room. But anyway, it's interesting that LAX would actually do that premium service. I find it pretty interesting.
It gets a lot of stick, that airport, but it's getting much, much, much better by every day that goes by.
Another fun story, unrelated, since we talked about it, ANA last time. There was this passenger. It was a long-haul flight, a nine-hour flight from Turkey to somewhere I don't remember. And the person admitted, you know, when you book, you can ask for special meals, right? And he put gluten-free. And the only thing he got was a banana and a pack of salt.
Do you believe this? Do you think this really happened?
Well, I don't know, because apparently the airline responded that they will review their policy and they apologize to this guy.
That just can't be right. That's bad. Yeah, I've seen it, and I was like, can this was it that it was he didn't like what was given, and then they did this? I'm not sure, but if he did, that's bad. That's bad that they just gave him a banana, because that's a little trick that people use, isn't it? That if you know that the standard economy meal is going to be terrible, then you order, you know, vegetarian or a
halal
Hindu meal or halal or something
exactly.
like that. And it's usually, because it's done at such a smaller scale, it's usually much better. And you get served first. My kids with their kids' meals always get served ahead of time. But this clearly was not the case.
The picture is fantastic. You have a banana with just a sticker on it with a number, which is 33A in ANA.
Jeez, I hope that's not true.
Yeah, me neither. Or at least I hope that ANA changes its policy if it's really true. Since we're in Asia, the C919 has taken its maiden flight. The Chinese, the COMAC competitor to Boeing, Airbus, and probably also Bombardier. What do you think?
I think it's a very elegant looking airplane. It's like a little mini Dreamliner-y kind of Although, actually, it looks a lot like the Bombardier, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has something to it, right? I think it's bigger, maybe the size with a CS300. It's on the lower scale of the narrow bodies of Boeing and Airbus. The thing is that, I mean, of course, it's just a maiden flight. It's been expected for a long time. It's been delayed, etc., etc. But, well, at least in China, they have a huge market. They probably actually will sell some of those.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
they've had 560 orders.
Mostly from China, actually.
Almost exclusively from China, although GE Leasing have got 20 on order.
Yeah.
But they'll probably go to Chinese airlines. So, but I think that they're due to go into service 2020.
I think so. Yeah.
But congratulations to them. They streamed the whole thing live.
Yeah,
from within
that was
the plane.
cool.
2 million people
really
were simultaneously watching, which was neat. Very cool.
Yeah, it was a very grand ceremony. I did watch some of it. It was fun. We said last week that Norwegian was, since we're going back to Europe, Norwegian was opening the route to Singapore. The latest news about Norwegian, that's interesting. They are pondering having a base in Germany as well. So launching flights from Germany. So there would be a new base, not only from now they have in the UK and in Ireland, but they would also fly from Germany. So they really are, becoming like a European-wide airline, if you're going that way. It will be very interesting.
My mother took them yesterday from London, from Gatwick to Oakland. First time on Norwegian long haul. And it's always funny what people focus on and worry about when they fly.
What did she say? What did she?
She got herself the meal, so she paid ahead for the meal.
Okay.
But she was worried about water. Like, will they give me free water? Do I have to pay for water? I'm like, I'm sure it'll be fine. She kept going on. She's like, but I drink a lot of water. I want to make sure I can get the water. I'm like, just take a bottle. And then she said, "Oh, I need to pick up I need to get some headphones or something as well. I don't know. It'll probably be fine. I'll probably just pick some up on the plane or something like that." And I thought I wouldn't have thought for a second about water, but if I did not have headphones, I would have been freaking out. Going, I'm not going 12 hours across the Atlantic without any goddamn headphones. I'm stressing out about this, but for her, it was completely inconsequential. But she said that it was a very pleasant, very, very good flight.
But then again, people like us, I'm not saying everybody, but that's also sometimes we don't see it. I mean, I always travel with my own headphones and I even connect them to whatever IFE. So it's not a concern anymore, but it's true that probably I still see a lot of people who are just using whatever the airline gives them.
Yeah.
So clearly, not everyone is, prepared with like 25,000 devices like we have in our backpack.
Absolutely. I just don't think I could have risked not having a pair of headphones.
I know.
Because how many times have you taken the airline headphones and one side doesn't work, or
exactly.
They literally fall apart inside of your ear. But I just think it's interesting what is important to different people.
Absolutely.
But she said that the check-in at Gatwick is now kiosk and automated bag drop now.
Oh, wow.
Which is really cool. Okay. The EasyJet have it at Gatwick as well. You just kind of you print out this bag tag and you go and you dump it into a machine. There's very little human interaction. She said she went from curbside to gate in 25 minutes, including dropping a bag.
Oh, wow. That's actually, wow.
For Gatwick, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. But Gatwick is really getting fully automated. That's compared to Heathrow. Of course, Gatwick is a less premium airport, as in there's like more, the EasyJets and Norwegians, etc. But still, it's very interesting because even I don't really care about having human interaction. I mean, I'm not saying that I feel like a robot or anything, but I mean, having experienced the full automated Gatwick by flying EasyJet, I found it it made the flow very rapid. And even, because sometimes you're like, I know it will sound a bit condescending when I say that, but when I fly during the weekend or for holidays, of course, being used to travel in a more business manner, I like, these people are so slow in front of me. I can be like that. I'm sorry, guys. I clearly not saying it out loud when I'm in the airport, but in my head, I'm like, oh God, this queue is not moving because people forgot their belts, etc. But then with automation and also because the Gatwick security layout is well done, it actually breezes through pretty fast. And that's actually very efficient. And so I wish more airports were thinking about automating. There's always people, by the way. I'm not saying that there should not be any staff there, but I mean, the whole thing is being automated and it really works. I really admire Gatwick for that.
I do too. I've been more and more impressed with Gatwick every single time I go.
The one thing interesting is that I came back from Hong Kong at Heathrow. We landed at T5, and it was 4:30 in the morning. And I always, complained that, they have these e-gates. So if you have a biometric passport, well, they have probably in T5, 20, 30 of these gates, and only like 3 were open. And
Yeah,
I was like
doing that.
And actually, I was told, because we were flying with some people from Heathrow, the head of digital, etc., that they need staff to look at the pictures while they're being taken. I mean, the computer matches, but there's always needs to be staff to,
Really?
I don't know if it's double matching. And of course, at 4:30 in the morning, there are not a lot of staff yet. Hence, they cannot open the 20X e-gates, which is interesting because I've seen other airports where it seems to... Are they using simply more staff, or are they trusting the machines more? Well, it doesn't seem to be something. I don't know. It's interesting to see that the humans are still involved in matching your face with the computer or something.
And I've also seen that they have people on there because the process does confuse quite a few people. And if you haven't done it before, it is a little intimidating to walk in and know exactly what you're trying to do. And so I think they need people kind of patrolling up and down to help people that have, got lost in the system, as it were.
I prefer the way the Germans do it because I was connecting at Munich, and I'll go to my trip in a second, because you first put your passport. There's a first door if you want.
Yes.
And if your passport checks as being biometric and readable, then that first door opens, and then the camera takes a picture of you and matches with whatever information it got before. Because some people think they have a biometric passport. At Heathrow, that happens. They go and then, it's too late. They're already in that e-gate, and they have to kind of come back out and go through the queue. And I think that having this two-step process in Germany makes more sense because it eliminates people that shouldn't have been there because they actually don't have a biometric passport, even though they thought they had one. And I think that's clever.
Yeah, it is clever. And this was never going to be a fully smooth transition, no matter what airport or what country or anything. Yeah. But I think it's definitely been so far in the 10 years that we've been experimenting with this has been 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And with every step we take back, they refine. Like, you remember the disaster at Gatwick, maybe, and Heathrow, where they had them for like 6 months and then they had to tear them all out again for I don't know what reason, but we persist, and I think that that's good.
I will go quickly because I forgot to do it in the previous episodes. Actually, there have been a few reviews, and I want to thank and acknowledge those because people were very kind to us. I have a few in front of me. There's Fernando AG from the US who gave us 5 stars on iTunes. Best aviation news podcast. I really like this podcast. I think this is the best aviation podcast in iTunes right now. Thank you so much.
That's kind. Thank you.
And Kamiru-san from Germany, the title says, I could listen to it every day. 5 stars, good balance of all global aviation, very good audio quality. Thank you. We appreciate that. We're trying.
Yeah, it's something we're very, very aware of.
And I like it because he said, I always listen to it while cleaning up and doing the dishes. I hope you guys keep it up, preferably weekly. Well, we're trying. It's really hard for us to do it weekly. We really wish we could, but we still have to work, and actually in our work entices travel, so sometimes we can't. But we promised that we were trying to do it at least twice a month. And you'll see, we recorded last week. We're doing one this week. You should be happy. And we also, even though I never requested them, we also had like a lot of reviews on our Facebook page, facebook.com/layovers.2, all 5 stars. Guys, thank you. Ian Dewar, passionate, fun, and informative. J. O. Air Aviation, 5-star, excellent, humorous, and informative. This is exactly the type of podcast I love to listen when traveling by air, which I do very often. So thank you so much, Jay. Streaming Ned, highly entertaining, 5 stars. Peter Johnson has been a very loyal listener since the beginning. Excellent program from Paul Alex, highlighting the news and more crucially the experience of flying airlines today. And also Oscar gave us 5 stars. So guys, thank you. I never thought about asking reviews on that page, but thank you because it's really kind. It kind of validates what we're doing because we don't know most of our listeners. Sometimes you pop up on our feed, and it's always nice to have this more personalized kind of interaction with you guys. So thank you. Thanks a lot. Really.
Yeah, really appreciate you all taking the time to do that.
We really, really do. So, my travel. So let's go there because it's quite of a long story. I'm going to try to be a little bit short. I'll just say it as it happened. So I'm flying to Budapest. I wanted to reposition myself to take that Finnair flight from Helsinki, AOI 69, that would be taking me from Helsinki to Hong Kong, trying the same product that you had tried 2 weeks ago, going to Helsinki from London, the 350. everything goes fine. I on purpose chose to route via Munich with the Lufthansa because I say, look, if I miss the connection at Munich, there's 2 other flights that still take me in time to Budapest. So I'm like, well, everything was fine. The flight, it was a 6:55 a.m. flight from London to Munich. We departed actually on time, even like a few minutes early. So the layover was in 1 hour, 20 minutes in Munich, Munich is super efficient, even if you have to go through passport control because we live outside of Schengen. And I had a lot of time, actually. I even, that's a joke. This, usually I would just go to the Senator Lounge since I have status. And then, I was in the middle of the duty free, basically, just walking towards that lounge, and there was this little spot when they sell you these like face creams and stuff like that, and I see this person, this girl, like starting, of course, trying to sell me something, right? And I look at her and say, okay, challenge accepted, so I'm gonna sit down. And she started like explaining me all the products and putting like a face cream on my head. I'm bald as well. I say, yeah, go ahead on my head. Then she put like eye cream and everything. And at the end of it, I told her, thank you so much, because I looked really, really tired, and now I'm fine for the rest of my journey. She laughed and I left. But I mean, thank you. I think Jasmine, she was called. So shout out to you for playing with me for like half an hour. That's awesome. Explaining all your products. So then I took the other flight to, that was also very nice. It was, I think once was 319 and the other was the 321 to Budapest. And Budapest had 5.5 hours. And I'll talk about Budapest at the end of the show. So, all good. I'm like, this is great. I have all the time. I went to the observation desk. I'll talk about it at the end of the show. So it's really nice time at Budapest airport. I could have gone to the city with 5 hours, but I decided not to. I did some work.
Yeah, because it's quite a ways out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not that close. I mean, I'll explain that also at the end. There's no like direct link. You have to take a bus to a train station. It's a bit complicated. So I said, I don't want to stress out. I'll be here. And, I was going to reassure because like, okay, from now on, because I checked in via mobile, I'm on a Finnair ticket. So whatever happens, I'll be fine. Yeah. Go to the lounge, I start working, and I was texting Alex. I was thinking all the quirks and the funny things about Budapest airport. We board on time. We get into the flight, thunderstorms, but like massive, massive thunderstorms. The airport gets shut down. So I had a layover in Helsinki for 1 hour and 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, if we have like 30 minutes late, I'm still fine. Helsinki is very efficient as an airport. Yeah. For like even an hour late, and time was passing. I was, oh my God. And I was talking to the flight attendants. I even talked to the pilot and was like, well, you should be fine. Right now, nothing we can do. The airport is literally shut down. I mean, they didn't allow any ground staff to go outside. They couldn't,
wow. So really end of the world.
Really, right? Yeah, exactly. And you could see like with thunderstorms, heavy rain, lots of wind. No plane could actually land. No plane could depart. And no staff was on the ground. So it ended up delaying me by 1 hour and 40 minutes. I just told you that my layover was so I was like, oh, no. The flight attendant tells me, well, I think you should be fine because we'll gain some time. And, and in my head, I was like, well, it's Helsinki, Hong Kong is a 9 hour and 30 minutes. It has happened to me, especially because I'm in business class, that, a plane waiting for 10 minutes, they will do it because it doesn't change a lot. It's not a short haul. Well, so I was still hopeful. Let's put it that way. Finnair, although it was a regular 319, it was really very enjoyable. My mother was from Finland, so I was really happy to being able to understand a little bit of the language and the food. Also, that was really nice having some childhood memory, even if it's plain food. At 15 minutes before landing, I was actually going out of the lavatory, in the front, and she looks at me and says, oh, you're the guy that goes to Hong Kong. I said, yeah, no. At that point, I was like, well,
so okay, wait, at which point did they tell you this?
15 minutes before we were landing in Helsinki.
Oh, so it's like you'd spent the whole flight going, I might make it. I think I could do this. I can do this because Helsinki is such a great airport to transfer. And
I had even this thought that maybe they will wait for me and at the gate and breeze
or there was
me directly.
some operational delay or something. You want the gods to smile on you.
I'll get you there. We land. I see the plane. I see the 350. And, I was on a plane finder and I see it. I'm like, oh my God, it's right there, right? So we arrive, apologize to other passengers, say, sorry, and I go like right in the front. So I'm the first one to go out to the cabin. The door opens and the ground staff that person was there, she tells me, Finnair is waiting for you to give me an alternative. But she says, well, the Singapore flight is delayed by 45 minutes. Maybe you can catch it. And that's all she says. And I'm like, where should I go? She says, you go straight, down, left. Okay, so I run like a madman. You know, I'm with my phone in one hand, with a carry-on in the other, and I'm like, where is that Singapore flight, right? And I go so fast, and this is where, of course, it's an outlier case. I'm like, you know, like you, Alex, we're pretty good at sensing where we are in an airport and figuring it out. So I couldn't find my way to another gate. And I ended up, after running like a madman, at the luggage delivery was, and I said, okay, whatever, I'm going to exit, I'm going to re-enter. So I take a flight of stairs, and I enter this huge hall, checking hall from Finnair. At that point, it's 11:55. The airport closes at midnight. So basically, there's no one. There's only 2 persons at security. Is there anyone from Finnair? They say, well, we're not sure. The airport is closing. Can I go through the Singapore flight? And I say, because I want to be honest, but I only have a Hong Kong boarding pass. I said, sorry, but we cannot let you, which is fair, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, my God. So I start running, and I end up finding the Helsinki airport information desk. There's like 2 persons. They start making calls for me, and I'm still looking, and I have this flight tracker, and I can see that the Singapore flight is still on the ground. I'm like, please, I need to get to that flight. So she tells me you have to go back where you were, and there's a bell on the wall, and you have to press that bell. I'm like, what? So,
really?
and, you know, she tells me it's next to that grocery store. I'm like, whatever. So I find a grocery store. I obviously don't find a bell. You know, finding a bell is like finding like a little piece of equipment on the wall. I'm like, which bell?
Gigantic cavernous airport terminal.
We started ringing all the freaking bells I could find. This person comes and says, oh, are you Mr. I'm like, yeah. Oh, we were waiting for you. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I couldn't find you. That was really cool because she was crew, so she takes me back airside via staff passages. So I don't know if you know that. Yeah, because I didn't go through any kind of security, whatever. She drops me to a Finnair desk, which I realized later I passed by, but I didn't see. It was next to the belt thing. I look at her and say, can I make the Singapore flight? And she had all the papers ready. She gives me the papers in front of me, and I see the boarding passes, and the boarding passes says Cathay Pacific. And I'm like, you know what? At that point in time, my mind went like, well, forget about that Singapore flight. Right? But suddenly I see Google Trips sending me a notification, and it says AI69, which is Helsinki, Hong Kong, the one I was supposed to, is 55 minutes late. And I'm like, what? So it's still here? And actually, the door had closed, the plane had been on the ground, and all this time was there. It had closed. So actually, that's super frustrating because I'm like, I could have actually made it.
But hang
it's
on
still
a second.
Here.
Cathay doesn't fly to Helsinki.
No, but that's the thing. So they rerouted me the next morning, Helsinki, Paris via Finnair, and then Cathay to Paris to Hong Kong, which is in 11 hours. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I did Munich, Budapest, Helsinki. I slept one night in Helsinki, Paris, Hong Kong. I was almost like 18 hours late in Hong Kong and missed
Did they put you up in a hotel?
Yeah, the Hilton. I mean, everything. I mean, to be frank, at that point, because I was lost, I was a bit even like angry at some point, like, what the hell is going on? But that was really well made. Everything was set for me. The hotel is 2 minutes away walking from the terminal. I even chose my seat. I told, I didn't really care about the Finnair flight, but I said, can I choose a seat on the Cathay Pacific flight? And she's like, yeah. And she pulls it up, and there was this window seat. Oh my God, like a solo window. I'm like, of course, because last minute I thought I would not have one. So I was relieved. And shout out to friends who were there. There was a conference called Arctic 15, a tech conference. And I texted them and they said, Paul, join us for karaoke. So I took a cab at like 30 past midnight, and I went to the center of the city, 30 minutes, singing karaoke with a few friends. A few actually were there. And then
that's amazing.
So actually I made something out of my night in Helsinki. So it was actually pretty cool. The next day, so the lounge at Helsinki is really, really nice. The Finnair lounge.
Oh yeah, I didn't get a chance to try it because I was in such a rush.
Very Scandinavian. I love Scandinavian kind of lounges. Lots of white and airy and lots of light. It was really nice. So first flight, very pleasant flight, Finnair. So shout out to Finnair. Shout out for having rebooked me so easily. And then, Charles de Gaulle. And you have the same feeling about Charles de Gaulle I have. And I have, again, it follows me an hour and 25 minutes to change. And I'm like, I'm not sure which terminals these guys are. But at that point, I'm not thinking in my head, and that's maybe stupid out of me. I'm thinking, well, if they book me it must be that I have enough time to make that connection, right? I mean, honestly. And so I land at Terminal 2D at Charles de Gaulle, which sucks. Finnair is switch terminal. It's horrible. We go out of the plane again. I'm like, I push my way to be the first because I really want to rush because I don't trust Charles de Gaulle. And they couldn't open the doors that led from the jet bridge to the terminal because they didn't have the right code. So I was talking to them in French. I'm like, guys, please. We lost like 10 minutes of not them being able to open the doors. So all of us were stuck in a jet bridge. Anyway. 2D is a disaster. The layout is again a disaster. I'm trying, where is the passport control? I started moving left and right, going like, again, running like a madman with my carry-on. I pass passport and she tells me something very ominous. She tells me, you should not stay here, go fast. And look at her. And I still have like an hour and 20 minutes. I'm like, okay. I continue finding where's transfer and I end up on the ground level of the airport and I see it's a bus that goes from terminal to terminal. I look at the bus. No. Yeah, there's a bus route sticker. You know, I'm at 2D and I'm supposed to go at 2A. So in my mind is like, these must be kind of close, right? Yeah. 43 minutes.
What?
Bus.
How is that even possible?
Because it does all the terminal clockwise. And of course, I should have gone anti-clockwise and that doesn't exist. 43 minutes. So you're sitting in a bus and there's nothing you can do. At least when you run in an airport, you have a feeling that you're doing something.
Yeah,
you try. There's nothing you can do.
You're totally
at
the mercy of the bus.
And of course, at every stop, which are many, you're like, why are you stopping so long? There's no one. Leave. But you don't want to say anything because you don't want the driver to be upset at you. And so I'm like, oh my God. Even the guy at the door of that transfer desk, I said, I need to go to 2A. And he looks at me and says, how long do you have? I said, like an hour, 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm like, no way. Anyway, I ended up arriving, honestly, just in time in 2A. Thank God there was no other layer of security. I just had to go into 2A. And then, my God, Cathay Pacific, even the ground staff, which is probably Charles de Gaulle staff, was so well trained. For some reason, Finnair had forgotten to put my miles, my One World card, on the ticket, the Cathay Pacific one. It didn't show on the printed one. So she looks at it and she says, do you want me to add your miles? I was like, oh yeah. So I was completely blocking the queue, right? She literally was so nice. So I want to give them a shout out. I should have kept their names. They were really cool at the door. And then the plane, I understand why people love Cathay Pacific, man, now.
Yeah.
Shit. Oh my God, this is really... I get it. Alex, I get your love for that. They're like, my God, this is probably one of my best ever. Okay, again, business class, I get it. So a few people told me, Paul, it's not the same in economy. Of course. But my God, the seats is probably one of the best seats for sleeping for me. You know, I'm 196, 6'4"-ish. We're talking 777s. It's not the newer seats. You know, you still have these odd old connections for like RCA connections.
Yeah, S-video and all that. Yeah.
They don't make any sense anymore. But wow. The crew. How did you describe them? You described them when I was talking to you. You said...
Yeah, the cabin service manager or chief purser, they have this sort of matronly authority about them in a like almost like a nanny in a way that they
Absolutely.
are able to predict a problem before it happens or before you or to fulfill a request you didn't even know that you had. It's extraordinary.
Incredible. Honestly, the level of service. And that person, she came to introduce, because I'm gold, so probably, you know, she came to introduce herself and, you know, I do the thing that I explained last episode, is just call me Paul. And that alone, she became my friend. She was over the top helping me, over super nice with me. And I'm so stupid that I didn't, you know, write down her name, because that was honestly one of my best ever experience in flight. And I tried the Betsy beer in flight.
Nice.
Wow.
It's good, isn't it?
Wow.
It's really good.
And okay, one of my best flight ever. Shout out to Cathay Pacific. Sadly, it's still too expensive. It's not an airline that I will be able to fly very often. But so thank you, Finnair. I'm sorry I didn't fly your 350, but I'm very thankful that you actually put me on the Cathay Pacific, because the airline that eluded me for so long, I finally tried it and loved it. So yeah, amazing. To make the story short, because we're running out of time, when I went to check back, so I was flying a BA for HackHorizon, BA 32. It's the 11:10, I think, p.m. to in
Ah,
Hong
that's
Kong
the one that
to
we took.
the A380. I did what you asked me last time, and I went to try the Cathay Pacific lounges. So I didn't realize there's like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Like, and they all have these names. And I was asking you, Alex, which one is the one that I should try? So at first I went to the wing, which is the closest one to security.
Yeah, that's the
there's
upstairs one.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's very big. There's a business one, a first class section as well. And because the gate that I was supposed to take was close to that one, so I left my bag there. And then just walking, I went to the Pier, the one you talked to me about.
And that's the underground one.
Yeah, but yeah, you were right. It's probably one of the top 5 lounges in the world.
Yeah, it's like walking into the lobby of a 5-star hotel.
It's incredible. It's incredible. The quality of that lounge. I mean, it has been, I was reading about it. It has been redone recently. It shows, but holy cow, the food, there's like rooms. You can see the ramp from each of them. You can go to sleep. I didn't have time to do that. There's a restaurant. There's only on the first class Pier lounge. There's no buffet, only a la carte menu.
Yes.
I sent you the menu. Holy cow, we need to have
incredible.
a dinner we need to have a dinner together there. The bar, I took another Betsy, and actually, you know what? Yeah, there's a difference. It's actually better in flight. It's actually true what they say. Maybe it's me psychologically that I assume that, but there's a difference in taste, and I much more appreciated when I was at the 35,000
That's
feet
interesting,
and not in the ground.
I've only had them on the ground. I'll get one on Sunday and try that.
The head crew was saying, do they want to try the Betsy? And, I was having food and I said, yeah, but I'm still good with the one. She says, I'm going to keep a few for you, chill, just for you. I'll mark them for you. So yeah, she actually had kept some, I mean, again, level of service, amazing. Honestly, oh my God, I adore this airline. I understand why you love it so much. So yeah, the Pier is one of the best lounges I've ever seen. I've taken a lot of pictures. It's incredible.
I'm looking forward to going back.
BA32, so we had the entire premium economy for the HackHorizon, so people were actually hacking, so coding, etc. In the plane.
That's so cool.
That was really, really fun. We had the head of digital from Heathrow was with us. We had the head of Smart Airport Hong Kong with us. We deal with all the apps and all the smart technologies there. They have like 12,000 beacons. For the first time, I tried to download an app for an airport, which I never do, like you don't probably. And I've tried the indoor wayfinding. Holy cow, this is accurate and this is great. It even detects at which floor you are, tells you like 3-meter radius exactly where you are, and gets you directions where you want to go. It's super, super well done. Congrats to Hong Kong Airport for that. Heathrow is actually, but they are about to release wayfinding as well. So this
cool.
is really, really cool. Yeah, really, really cool. So that's going to be out very soon. I cannot tell you exactly when, but it's we had access to the API, so we're able to try also indoor mapping, and I've been able to see the preview of indoor wayfinding at Heathrow. So the flight, and I want to give a shout out to Robin. Robin is the BA guy who handles China, the Philippines, and APAC. He is the one who believed in HackHorizon. He's the one who put the money where his mouth was and supported the entire project inside of BA. And you know what? So I was also in business class, a few of us. So he was me and Stephen and another person. And he actually was my tandem seat passenger in business. So for once, he was actually nice because I had someone that I knew. So we actually chatted a lot. And at some point, I even saw him like he was watching a movie. It was a 12 hours and 9 minutes flight. And I saw him laughing so much. And I said, what are you watching? I need to watch the same thing you did. So now, for once, it was not awkward to have this kind of very closeness with your fellow passengers. So
that's nice.
So that was a very pleasant flight. The crew was, because the crews at the beginning were like, what the hell is happening? There's a lot of kids here like coding and not sleeping. And but since we were not disrupting anyone because we had like an entire cabin for us, it worked very, very well. So thank you, BA. You had a stellar crew. That was really fun.
What a neat experience.
So I know we are about to end this show, so I'm going to quickly explain. I know I'm rambling what the results were. So I didn't take, as I said in the previous episode, I didn't take sound bites. I took a few, but not enough to create an episode. So I'll probably do something else with them. And I will invite some of the guys I just mentioned.
Good idea.
The head of digital of Heathrow, Hong Kong as well. They approved it, and a few others, a few of the participants. We had guys that flew from LA, from Sao Paulo, from KL, from New Zealand, from all over Europe, Italy, of course the UK, that all flew to be in Hong Kong to be doing that flight. So it's some of these guys are ex ex-Apple. They've been working at Apple for 10 years. So they had like really a lot of credential and experience. It was even this guy that has even written shows for Fox. I think Lethal Weapon, the reboot of the... I mean, it's crazy the amount of different people, the super good balance between creative designers, coders, and business-minded people. Literally in 3.5 days, because yesterday on May 8th evening was the final here in London, these guys created live working prototypes in 3 days.
I'm always just blown away by that.
This is probably the best thing that goes out of a hackathon, is showing companies like BA, through others, that you don't need, timelines of 12 months or even 3 years to build stuff. Sometimes, I know these are prototypes, but in 3 days, with not a lot of sleep clearly, but in 3 days, you can actually do all this very quickly. We had, of course, the help from Hong Kong Airport. We did a tour of the backstage at Hong Kong. It was really super interesting, the technology they have. We couldn't take any pictures, but we saw the operation centers where they actually monitor all of us. They can track, of course, people, especially for suspicious behavior. I was told that in Shanghai, Pudong, actually this technology is even more enhanced to the point that they can know that Alex Hunter is there and they track you at every single second. Wow, this is almost
100% sure how I feel about that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's very interesting to see how it works from behind the scenes. We had, of course, Travelport, Sita, and others that were giving access to the teams to APIs. The products they created were live. We're using actual, real data from today. Not, cool. It was not just sandboxing and... So quickly, the way it goes, people pitch at the beginning, and then they try to gather team around an idea, basically pitch amongst themselves.
Okay.
And 8 teams were formed. The first one was a smartwatch that used deep learning to personalize the passenger experience. So the idea is when you're on layover, you pick up a smartwatch at, for instance, Heathrow. They even actually found a smartwatch, a $30 smartwatch that you can find in China, which has all NFC, Bluetooth, all the things. And that smartwatch keeps you updated about your journey, but also with wayfinding that Heathrow is implementing, tells you where to go. It has all your information with your PNR, so thus gives you hints of where you'd like to maybe do some shopping. Maybe Alex wants to buy new headphones and not go for cosmetics, right? Or stuff like that. So it was a very interesting idea. The second one was predictive AI to basically enhance your passenger experience. It was called Happy. It was actually a little person, so like a virtual assistant, that shows on an app and actually tells you what to do and it helps you.
That's cool.
I think it uses IBM Watson API because IBM was also helping us. There was another team that's called TripFlow. It was end-to-end security luggage transfer by blockchain, so the ledger. And that works really well. So it was not only, from the time you actually give your luggage to the time you get it at the belt. It was including solutions to have it delivered at your home. So hand-off solutions, because blockchain will allow you to track your luggage. It was very, very clever. And obviously we're talking about very high-end technology. Another one was called Collabos. There was a chatbot, but a very interesting one is just, we've talked a little bit about that in the past, Alex. It was about creating, group travel, where 5 of us, we want to go somewhere, and this chatbot helps us predict the dates we want to go, where we want to go, how to organize, where to buy the tickets, how to split the money. It was 3 days. It was really well done.
That's amazing.
It's really, really cool. Then Destination, they're the ones who won, and I talked to you about that. It's an IFE to mobile retail solutions. You build stuff during your flight in the IFE, which probably, of course, is offline or you don't have Wi-Fi in the flight. So you can buy destination products for activities to do in London, in Hong Kong, or elsewhere, or even simply buy stuff, on the Sky Mall of these airlines. And then this gets handed off to your app. So let's say BA app, for instance, and you can buy when you're actually on the ground, make the deliver or activate whatever activities you bought. You could create a journey. What are you going to do for 3 days in London? It's very clever.
That's so clever because so often you're looking and you want to get the mechanics of your trip down, like the hotels and the transfers and the flights, obviously. That some of that stuff often gets left by the wayside. So using the flight time to build that stuff is very, very clever.
Yeah, it's
and then being able to take it with you, as you said.
They won the competition because it's something that could be actually done tomorrow, even by simply because they scaled down the ambitions, of course, because 3.5 days. Yeah. It's simply at the end of the process on the IFE, it gives you a QR code, and the QR code, you snap it with your phone, and that's the handoff. Instead of, at first, they were thinking about, IFEs and APIs, but of course, that would require Panasonic and Thales and all the other guys at IFE to actually implement stuff which they haven't done yet. These machines are still a bit dumb. They just display stuff, broadcast stuff to you, like movies and stuff. There was another, was called Lounge. They were doing like, let's say, Alex, you have access to the lounge. This is a location-based and time-based, so you can say, well, I have a free second person that can come to me in the first-class lounge at Heathrow T5, and because the program knows your PNR, it tells you you're going to probably be there for the next 2 hours, and then I can either request, or you can simply, request me, say, oh, Paul, I see you're also in T5, do you want to come? And it's based on serendipitous connection, so you use, of course, LinkedIn API and other stuff. It's like, lounge surfing, if you want, allowing other people. They mostly targeted like independent lounges, like, Aspire, number one, and others. The Priority Pass is one, because, of course, these are the ones that make money of more people coming in. Then there was Lux Press. They became number 2. They won the second prize. They have access to all the pricing of all the duty-free products in all airports, and they tell you, well, Alex, you really want to buy your headphones here at Heathrow?
I've always wanted to do that. I'm so happy that somebody's doing that, because not only will you can see where whatever product is the cheapest, but you can also go, if you're in an airport, by the way, I don't know if you're looking to buy this, but this is the cheapest in the world. This item that you may not have wanted, but since it's the cheapest in the world, you might want to go for it.
Yeah, so that's what they do, and they even provide a system within that would actually even deliver to you. So they will find a way that even if you're not at that other airport, to have it delivered to you at that airport price point. Some of the judges said, well, you could also help airports say, okay, we're going to price match whatever you got there. So that's very clever. That's why they won number 2. Kid Fly, that's the last team, the 8th team. When it was pitched, I really liked it. I don't have kids, as you know, but it was, this whole problem of unaccompanied minors. And a lot of airlines have either scaled back, or even some airlines have stopped, because it's quite of a headache to actually manage that, and there's a lot of liability and responsibility to. As a kid, I've many times traveled alone. I remember having this cord around me with my boarding pass on my chest, because you lived through that, because you were in boarding school, right? Yep. So you had to use that, and that's how the idea came up. They said, okay, we're in Hong Kong. There are all these kids that go back to the UK alone, and airlines have difficulties more and more, and they say, how can we price that correctly? So they basically created this apps, because there's one for the parents and one for the kids, in cooperation with the airline, with the airport, but also with Uber and others. So basically you would have the entire journey mapped out. So you would know at every single step where your kid is, and in 2 ways, because you want to give your child responsibility. Your kid can constantly tell you, oh, I'm in the plane, and he or she just checks the I'm in the plane, and you as a parent get he or she is in the plane. But at the same time, if your kid stops doing that, you can still, because of the beacons, etc., know where he or she is right now. In London, I've seen a lot of parents putting their kids in Uber in the morning to take them to school, because they're like, you know what? I know the driver is, 4.5 stars, and I can actually track the driver, and I can know exactly when my kids are being delivered. Sorry, delivered is not the right term, but at school. And this is a similarity, but the whole journey. So even like, is the minder coming to find you at the gate? They added this example when the one who was playing the kid says, Dad, I'm scared. There's no one waiting for me. That message immediately got to the dad phone, and the dad could actually press a button and get immediately access to a dedicated service, I think, from BA. You guys created this whole service in 3 days.
It's incredible, isn't it? I'm always blown away by that.
It was really fantastic. I know we're running out of time for this show, so I'm going to stop here, but it was fantastic. Thank you for all the partners, BA, Heathrow, Hong Kong, but all the rest, HackHorizon.com. You can see their names. Shout out to Costa, Christy, Sandra, and Johannes, who are the 4 guys who actually put all this together. It was really, really fantastic.
Sounds amazing. It really does.
We had a lot of airlines and airports having FOMO and said, we want to do this. So let's see if that ever happens again. But it was a fantastic experience. Is going to be a film and whatever. I'll try to post all of this on our layovers page. But yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Since we are running out of time, there's other news I wanted to touch, like Biggin Hill Airport. I will never tell the story.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I gotta get
so
that
have you been to Budapest?
I have.
Airport?
I like it. It's a good little airport, and it has a little tiny airplane graveyard and airplane museum. But I love it because I saw the best airplane registration I've ever seen there from the now defunct national carrier of Malev of Hungary. And the prefix for Hungarian airplanes is HA. And this plane was HA-LOL. So it was ha lol. And I thought, like, the dork in me just sat there giggling to myself. My wife was like, what's wrong with you? But yeah, it's a good little airport. And I think it sounds like it's gone. I went last time 7 years ago. So it sounds like it's gone through quite a modernization process.
So I was there. I just told the story. A few good things about it. At first, it's not a massive airport. It's very easy to navigate. Terminal 1, and I think it was still open when you went there. They closed down Terminal 1 because Malev went into bankruptcy. So basically now the airport has a lot. I've seen a CS100 from Swiss. Actually, that was really cool. Has a lot of Wizz Air. Wizz Air is a Hungarian low cost carrier that we see a lot in Europe. It's a big LCC, and that's their base. So you see a lot of Wizz Airs. I've seen also Norwegian. I've seen EasyJets, obviously, and I told you that new EasyJet livery is not really bad. I don't like it.
Not a big fan
so I think what happened is that they realized there were not enough foot traffic to Terminal 1, and since Terminal 2 had been expanded and renovated, they concentrated everything there, which creates the problem I mentioned earlier. The train station for that airport is actually under Terminal 1. So you have to take a bus from Terminal 2 to Terminal 1, which is about 8 minutes, and then board the train to the city, which is why I didn't do it. But taxis work well if you want to go into the city. It's pretty straightforward. It's actually pretty safe. There's even like a taxi waiting box, when the person inside, and even gives you the number plate of your cab. So it's really safe and off. So I really appreciated that when I went last time. So anyway, Terminal 2 is small. There's one side basically for international and one side for Schengen, to make it very simple. The one thing that is really, really, really cool, and more airports should have, they have this observation deck on top. It's landside, so anyone can go. And I've seen a lot of parents with their kids going to see just the planes taking off, and just, that was really, really nice. They're really proud of our history, which is something also appreciated. There was a lot of photos about what kind of planes I've ever landed. There was like a few of the Russian billionaires' planes. There was the 380 did test there, as well as the CS100 before it was handed off to Swiss and Antonov, etc., etc. But that means that they are trying to to teach you about aviation and being very proud of what they are, and that's something that I don't know. It's nice. I'm not saying that it's extraordinary by itself, but it's nice to have that. And they provide their chairs. There's even a cafe upstairs. You can stay. I stayed for 2 hours there instead of going to the lounge and locking myself in. So I'm gonna just work from up there. It was still before the thunderstorm. I really did appreciate that. The other thing is really interesting. There's a lot of little boxes, vending machines in the airport, and you can buy Fast Track. The Fast Track is only £4. Which
I
is
take that every single time.
I've asked other airports like Heathrow, says, would you ever go into selling Fast Track? Heathrow, by the way, didn't answer, which tells me they might actually go to something like buying a Fast Track access.
Some airlines or some airports do it, but it's not nearly as convenient as the vending machine. That's a great idea.
And Fast Track works very well. I mean, it's a bit of this Fast Track where basically the Fast Track leads you in front of everyone else. So, but people accept it. But anyway, it's a small airport, but really well done.
And you really got to test it for a layover, exactly.
For 5 hours, unless you're like me and you had to work, you honestly have the time to go to the city, and you should. Because security was not, even if you were not Fast Track, was not super long. So I would recommend that you visit, because Budapest is a very nice city to see. The center is beautiful. But if you ever are either stuck like I was or need to get work done, it's nice. I visited one lounge. I don't remember the name. It changed name, MKR. I think it used to be MasterCard. But anyway, very nice, because these non-airline lounges, sometimes they're like,
very hit and miss.
It was really well done. So will they ever reopen Terminal 1? We don't know. Terminal 2 is seeing an expansion again in 2 or 3 years. So we'll see. But it's... Just go there. Don't do like me, finding crazy routes to go to places, because you end up like me being stuck in places. But if you just go to visit, like I did actually last year, it's a really nice place to visit, and you'll enjoy the observation deck.
I like it a lot.
So when are you flying, Alex?
Sunday to Hong Kong for just a day or two, and then back to Paris, both on Cathay and business class. So I'm looking forward to that.
So it's both ways. It's 777, all right?
Correct.
Because Heathrow is also 777. I think Gatwick is 350 now.
That's right.
now that I've seen what it is, I'm extremely jealous.
Yes, I am looking
extremely jealous. Try the Betsy beer.
I will.
It's a 12-hour flight.
I'm very interested now that I've tried it on the ground, and I'll try it in the air now.
You know what? Don't do it very early in the flight. Make sure that it's really chilled, like really, really cold.
Okay.
And then get it, because it works, honestly. By the way, since we're on that, they've actually announced that they're expanding the number of routes where the beer will be available.
Good.
I was actually surprised to see it from Paris, because remember when we talked about it, we said it was London. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And because it's such a success, they are expanding it to other long-haul routes besides, the lounges, etc. So, guys, if you are lucky like Alex Hunter to fly Cathay Pacific every other day, please do try.
I wish that was the case.
And then how are you coming back from... did you decide how you come back from Paris to London?
On your recommendation, I'm flying out of Orly just back up to Heathrow on BA. So that was definitely the easiest.
So we'll discuss again about Orly. I'm also flying there, I think, in 2 weeks, and I sadly have to fly again also at the Charles de Gaulle. My God.
Oh God.
We'll do Charles de Gaulle one day as an airport.
Yes,
right?
one day.
On that, Alex, thank you for listening to my rambling.
Great. It's unbelievable stories.
And see you next time.
All right, safe travels, guys.